Thank you, Giacomo. It's a pleasure to speak to the event arranged by INNOVEAS. So my name is Paolo PERANI, and I'm the sustainability manager of the divisions of ABB, who takes care of medium and low voltage network components and systems. So a big portion of the energy in the factories as infrastructure belonging to SME, or not all of it, is linked to electricity. So we are very keen to the topics discussed in this conference today. Earlier today, we heard from Bruno Delapierre that he was talking about the big companies' commitment to reduce carbon footprint. So actually, I liked that presentation so much, and I completely changed what I was about to say today, because I think it was quite an interesting discussion. So I mean, a very complete approach. So, and actually he was also speaking about the role organization like Carbon Disclosure Project, and he was stating that the organization also certified the emissions of some big companies like us. So ABB is also certified by the CDP organization. Then we heard from him also about the Scope 1, Scope 2, and Scope 3 emission. So I will have something for each of the three. So when it comes to the Scope 1 and 2 emissions, so the direct and indirect from the factories, emission plays a big role. But again, there is no way to improve. And for an SME to improve, it means also in efficiency and emission, if you don't know where you are. So the first thing is to start measuring on something. I would like to share with you that the fact that with the new devices, the IP address and everything that you get, there are tools and systems that enable also the SME to measure their own energy use and act accordingly. This is actually quite interesting. So what can you do? What can SME do with his own system? So for example, optimize your energy bill. Maybe ENEL doesn't like that, but that's a different joke. So optimize the energy bill. That means that you can evaluate the best energy tariff based on your consumption profile. And then you can avoid the overcommitment for the utility and do some load shifting. In that case, also the utility will be happy about it and do peak shaving and power control. And definitely you can save a lot into the energy cost, because you will not ask for the utility a huge peak that may be only used for a few minutes or hours a day. That could be quite a good story out of it. Then you can track the road profile of some of your machinery into the SME. And then it will help you to identify early signs of poor equipment health, devices that are heating up too much, that are definitely not efficient, and you can get it through those kind of systems. And then, for example, I mean, you will identify that a compressor is working all the night because simply the pressure is too low, and then you carry on putting that energy and you're wasting it. So those are actually huge performance improvement that you can do into your efficiency. The data comparison can support the energy or the facility manager or the owner, if we discuss about SME, in assessing the situation and planning for a correction. Measuring is not enough. We need to do something. And then we heard the previous speaker that was discussing that we need to make efficiency as a strategic issue. I like that one very much, because I saw it into our own location here. I'm working from Italy in Dalmine. We did these cost calculations. You know, when you got the monitoring, you allocate properly the energy cost to the different products. And when you really start getting the ownership of the cost, you really start seeing a strategic issue. So people are actually keen in reducing the energy costs that are allocated to their own product chain. And that is something that, to me, can make the difference. And then with the same monitoring, you can already extract and comply with environmental, national, and international regulations. Like in Italy, we have the law number 102 that actually you need to do for a little bit bigger companies for the emission and for the energy efficiency. So you can get those systems and you can get it there. We have this system installed in some of our factory, and we will be supporting INNOVEAS, and we will open up our laboratories where the responsible for the SME can come over and see how those system works, and they can actually learn from us, actually comparing on what we have identified. So you need to consider that it is true that ABB is a multinational big company, But finally, it consists of several locations. We've got more than 140 plants around the world, and every single plant can be compared somehow to a medium enterprise with responsible people that you are actually taking the same approach of the SME to reduce energy cost in that case, and to improve efficiency. When it comes to the scope 3, that was also something opened up by Bruno Dellepierre. I think that the involvement and the involvement of supplier, I mean, taking the advantage that I will be just speaking a few minutes before Antonio Dentini, I mean, we are one of the supplier to ENEL. And then you already see some of the synergies between supplier and user. So we deliver components that they install into their own network. And we are lucky because they are actually a true front runner into the decarbonization of the circular economy. And they stress it quite often. We do the same thing, and we are pleased that the two commitments are actually very much aligned. The one for the user, and in our case, we as their supplier. In case of ENEL, it is actually quite good, the example that was taken by Bruno Dellepierre. I hope I pronounce it properly. He was mentioning the scope 3 that was at the moment somehow neglected, but is actually something that we need to address. Because when I produce something in my own factory, that is scope 1 and 2. And then I go and I actually start taking into consideration the component that I use into my own products, and the so-called use phase that is actually out of my factory, and it belongs to ENEL. So this is something that we are really working on together. We measure it and we address it. There is the same story goes for the end of life phase, where I produce something, they install it and they run it for 25 years. But in the end, we need to work together to make sure that we recycle the most of it. So what we are doing is that we start working on the product at the beginning, then supplying them and supporting them throughout the entire install phase, and also support them that from the products that we develop, it will be easier for them to get them recycled. That is actually, there is a good cooperation with them, but not only with them. We are a supplier to ENEL, but we do the same thing. And that actually, I think that goes very much into the topic of our workshop here. So we work together with supplier in a very similar approach. We have already some very good story to share about supplier involvement, and we identify between different supplier loops some material loops where some of the wasted from one is actually taken as a raw material from the other. So we have got 4 or 5 very recent good cases identified, and then we really would like to push to increase and to foster the use of reused material. From our side, I think that what we can do, we address it at all the supplier days. So on a yearly basis, we meet all our suppliers, doesn't matter tier 1, tier 2, coming back to the presentation earlier this morning. We got all of them on board, and they are actually directly pushed to identify more and more CO2 reduction and closed loop to reduce the use of resources in that case. So from our side, what we've done, and I'm going to close now. So we completed all our scope 1 and 2 emission for all the factory of ABB worldwide. And we are also actually addressing how to further improve energy efficiency and reduce the emission. So in a few words, the overall ABB goal that has been recently reinforced during the last Capital Market Day last week, in 3 words is like this: reach carbon neutrality in our own operation by 2030. That means really a lot. So we will have to really commit to this. Support our customer to reduce their annual emission by 100 megaton. That is a huge undertaking that we do. So that is all scope 3, because it's something that we produce and it is used by somebody else. And then it is clearly there, it's spelled out, the CO2 emission reduction into a systematic approach with supplier. So I think that I believe that these last 3 topics could really represent a clear commitment towards the accelerating small business participation in the transition to a carbon neutral economy, Giacomo. Thank you.